So it's been about 2 months since the P6 came out. So I thought it would be a good time to just make a beat, and while we make the beat, talk about all of the good parts of the P6, but also the bad and the really bad or not so great, and also where I would hope to see some improvements. One of its biggest strengths, but also kind of its biggest weaknesses, they've packed so much into this sampler and this tiny form factor that it's awesome how much you can do with it, but to do most things, it requires a lot of menu diving and just know-how about like navigating the systems and things like that. So let's just get started though. I recently got a new vinyl player, so I sampled some vinyl, and we've got some drums. The first thing I want to do is actually check out this sample. And what I'm going to do, and I think one of the biggest strengths of the P6 is its chop functionality. It's very easy to just chop something up. And so if we go to Shift Voice, we can just move the screen over to chop, and we can set however many slices from the sample that we want. So I'm going to do 8. Then we're going to get into probably one of the not so great parts of the P6, and that's that as of now, you can't actually move the slice points. And you also can't add any sort of attack or release, you know, if there's pops and clicks and stuff like that. So we've made the chop. If we hit keyboard, you can see that some of these keys are lit up now. That's because they're now individual slices. And if we did more slices, you would have all of those. So let's hear that beat. And let's figure out what we want. And then we're gonna mess with these other drums and things like that. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we can either do that for 3 bars and then use this as a 4th bar. I think we'll do the 32 steps. So to do extra steps, I think we'll just, actually, so maybe we should do the drums first. You kind of have to think about, if you're programming, when to do each step. So let's really quick, we've got our chops. I think that's the general idea, but before we go into that, let me just get to these kind of swing sounds, because right there I want that percussion. And so we're going to go start and end. Those are the start and end points of the total sample. I just want that. And we're going to turn on lo-fi. Wow, do you hear that ring it adds? Let's keep that though, because we're going to go into one of the other strengths of the P6, which is independent or per pad filters, as well as per pad sends for delay and reverb. But there's a really big catch to that send and reverb. That's kind of annoying. So we need to actually set the type first. So we're going to go to low pass because I want to get that nasty sound out. Right there. That should work. And then let's just up the resonance and see what we get if we do that. A little more. I like that. Okay, that's perfect. So what I'm going to do is just put this quiet in the mix, and then if we get out of keyboard, here's our step sequencer, so we can just put a step. And one thing, there is step automation that you can do if you enable the record button while it's playing. If you make changes to knobs and things, it will change. So sometimes that's a good thing, but sometimes if you're recording a sample and then you make some tweaks like, oh, I need to just change this, it will record those changes in per step. And so you can have some interesting things, but you can clear that if you go to Shift Motion, this octave down, and you can clear out anything of that. I want to just really quickly go to the poll. So it looks like 50% have checked out the P6. Oh, 56 now, it's moving. Let me know in the chat how you've been getting on with it. It is a very complicated sampler, but once it kind of clicks, you can move pretty quick on it. All right, so we've got that sound. And then this other one, I want a little snare roll. Maybe that. Just moving the endpoint to see kind of where we want to get. That should work. Okay, and that I'm thinking we're gonna put right before the second snare. Yeah, that works. All right, here we go. Yeah, that's perfect. All right, and I just want to lower this. This one is almost acting kind of like ghost notes, but also just kind of a snare roll. Levi says that's a nice snare roll. I agree. Yeah, I'm actually taking down this one because I just want this little tom roll in the background to add some character to that start of each beat. And I'm wondering maybe we even alternate and move it around. Once we start sequencing more bars, we're probably going to change it. But to start, I like to kind of get everything laid out on 16 steps. And then once we start adding more steps, you can go into those other bars. Because that's part of this, you know, it is a weird workflow to get between pages and do all that stuff. So I kind of like to set the table almost like before starting expanding things, and then we can make the variations. Let's see. I'm going to go to the chat really quick. Mike P-6. So I'm thinking you're a fan of the P-6 with that name. That's awesome. Says the Granular is dope. I agree. We are going to talk about the Granular, and we'll try to use it in this beat. We'll see. I'm thinking maybe there's a piano lead I have that we can use the Granular. The Granular is crazy. Cresshead's in the chat. What's going on? How are you? And Driver86 says, as an SP user, it hurts. They got a Granular Engine in this. I want that. I know. I'm with you 100%. My SP is my main instrument. It's right here. It almost seems like these two complement each other and are like meant to work together. Rondo says, can't stay, but I appreciate your explorations of the P6. I've learned a lot from it. No worries. I appreciate you hopping in and letting me know. That's great to hear. I'm glad it helps. Yeah, and if you can catch it later, it will be up, so don't worry about it. All right, let's go, though. We've got that snare roll. I almost want to put one more. I really like that snare roll, but sometimes you put too much and it overdoes it. But let's just put it here as well and just see. Oh, you know what we can do, actually? Let's drop the velocity so it's even quieter. Another nice thing with the P6, per step changes, you can adjust. If you hold a step, and this is one of the problems, you'll see kind of the recurring theme that's going to happen is everything that's awesome also has kind of a, but there's a catch to it. And that just, I think, is a result of the form factor, really. So anytime we want to make per step changes, you hold a step and then you hit the Granular button, and you can change a ton of different things. You can change the gate, the time, so you can get it off time, which we actually are going to do. You can kind of micro timing is what it's called. You can do ratchets or sub steps, but we're going to keep that normal. You can change the note value, so you can up and down the pitch. What else? Velocity, and that, I believe, I'm totally blanking out. That's probability. Yeah, that is probability. So actually, let's mess with that. We can do just a random probability. And that's everything you can do on that. Now, there is a way, and I'm totally forgetting what it was, but you can quickly shift between 3 velocity levels instead of having to go here, move to velocity. But you still have to trigger each independent pad, which is a bit of a problem. Like something like the Digitact, you can hold multiple pads at once and then make a change, and it adjusts it to all of that. And as of now, it doesn't seem to do that, unfortunately. But I hope that's something that they add. So you can't even hear it, but I just want it there to kind of add that ghost note. We could even go into the snare, but the snare is part of a drum chop. So this is my drum, my main drum. And if you look, I actually sliced it. And a nice thing with the slices on here is it is polyphonic. You can hold shift and gate, and you can make it poly. And so you can have multiple sounds or multiple slices play at the same time. I think that's a really big win, especially for something as tiny as this. Every single pad can be polyphonic, even if you've got multiple chops on a pad. That comes in really handy. Cresshead says, I have a SP404 Mark II looking at the P6. Nice. Okay, yeah. I mean, like I said, I think they go really well together. They do complement each other. You have the sample rates like the old SPs have, and then you've got these other things. And if you've got the SP, you can move kind of the ideas you make on here into the SP and finish it better. We'll talk about that later, but that's like kind of the way I view the P6 for me personally, is really as like the idea station. Start a beat, but I'm not going to do multiple patterns on this because you'll see it's really weird. And then move those samples or just one shots, whatever, into the SP and then build it from there. And we've done that in a previous live stream. But anyways, let's get back I think we've got all the kind of sounds we want, so let's get to this main sample. We're in the wrong bank. I apologize if some of the volumes are going to be kind of wonky. I'm kind of in between projects on this, so I have a very weird organization of the samples, so that might come into play when we jam out the beat, but we'll deal with it. So let's go to this main sample. I want to see if we turn on lo-fi, you can hear that really gritty sound, right? Sometimes you want that, but if you want the lo-fi effect without all of that grit, you can change the level. I'll do it again. If you just hit shift lo-fi and then hit enter when you're on the lo-fi on the screen, you can drop it. Hear what it just does, like completely bit crushed if we up it, but if we drop it, it just gives a nice little dynamic to it. Oh, that's a bummer. Crescent says, Roland compacts do not get feature updates, so don't hold your breath on that idea. Well, I'm still going to talk about what I would like to see, because I know maybe they don't update things, but we'll see. Because like the SP gets updates for years, and I don't know. I'm just hopeful that they will, but call me optimistic. It's all good. We'll see. And as it stands, it is a great little sampler, but it has a lot of drawbacks that I think they could update. Anyways, let's get to doing this part. So we actually need to extend the steps first. So what we're going to do is go, I think it is, where is it? I might have to check. There we go. Okay, so I think we can do shift play. Yeah, okay, so you can either manually adjust. If you go shift last, you can change the steps, or you can go shift play and move over to duplicate, and that will just double whatever you've got. So if we want it to be 64, we would do this twice. I think we can get away with 32. So let's just see. I'll run it and then see. We might actually want 64. I'm gonna just I want this level up a little bit. All right, let's try it. Bug fixes only, Crescent says, for the T8, J6, E4, and S1. All right. Again, I won't hold my breath, but I would like to see these things get fixed, because I think these are small patches they could make that would make a huge difference in the workflow. If anybody has ideas that they would want to see or issues they have with the P6, let me know in the chat, because as we go, you know, I'm happy to answer some of these things and stuff like that, or just discuss it. All right, let's start it. Yeah, I want 64 steps. So we're going to duplicate that one more time, and then we'll record it. All right, so let's get... why is it doing that? That's weird. I don't know why it's doing that little thing. Hold up. Okay, let's let it run and then we'll do it. There we go. And I got to check if we have, yeah, quantize should have been on, but you can easily shut quantize off, hitting shift quantize or the record button. Okay, and see how that one part is a bit louder? Let's find that. I think that's on page 2. This right here, we can just go in and change that velocity just down to, let's say, 40. Actually, I'm almost thinking let's experiment with something. Let's go to that micro time, get it a little off, really off there, and we'll up the volume a little less. That's pretty loud. Okay, what I think we'll do, let's see the notes. So we're doing E4. So we'll just put that on this step. and just put it a little off. And I'm going to get to the chat in just a minute. I just have this idea I want to kind of flesh out. Drop that volume. Up a little bit. So I'm using velocity to kind of mix the samples because there is quite a bit of volume difference. These last ones have a lot. Let's go here and we'll drop this velocity. Let's try 80 and see. I know there is a way to drop, like I was saying, the 3 tiers of velocity, but I'll just do this. Okay, let's hear what we got. And while this plays, I'm gonna run through the chat. Actually, I'll wait till I want to hear this. Yeah, that's better. Okay, now we got the volume. So next we're going to do some send effects and filter. But first, let's get to the chat. So Levi says, I think I'd like to see things ported from the P6 to the 404, like the Granular Engine. I know, I will say that as well. Like, I'll echo that sentiment. And someone else did up ahead too, I think. But seriously, I would love to see these things added, but now I feel like they probably never will because it cannibalizes another product of theirs. I would hope that's not the case, but it's like, I don't know. And that's why, to me, I do see that they would work best together because you can get some awesome stuff. But one thing, I guess I'll go to the part where I want to see some things added. We'll just skip around a little bit as chat goes. But Koala and SP have official integration. You can do a ton of stuff between them. I would like to see Roland create integration for their own 2 products between a USB-C, because as of now, it'd be nice. You can't do this sort of stuff, but if you could just instantly move samples over or use kind of the sample rates in here and then send those sounds back into the SP and just kind of move things between, because you don't have like a nice interplay between the 2. I'd love to be able to be like, oh, I made something on sound generator on the SP, sample rate it, or sample rate drop it in the P6, then move it back without having to do a bunch of cables and stuff like that. Okay, let's see what else we've got. But I'm with you, Levi. Crescent says, I'd love to be proven wrong for the P6, but looking at the others, I don't know, long shot. I hear you. I didn't know that. I don't have any of the other ones, but let's just hope. I don't know. Roland could surprise us. Samuel Kim says, I just want Granular on my 404 for real. I know. It would be so nice. You could do so much cool stuff, especially using sound generator, then the looper, drop the play rate. Then if you could Granular, oh man, you could do some really cool stuff with that. Fate B says, can't quite figure out track mutes on the P6. Seems to mute MIDI and not audio. Fate, are you just talking for like a performance? Because if you want to mute a pad, all you have to do is hold shift and press it. And it's muted in terms of like mute. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, Fate, but that is something you can do. You can also mute a whole bank by just tapping it. And this is E, not A. If it's flashing, that means it's the other banks. And then you just have to hit it twice to mute that one. Oh yeah, because I think we actually, wait, where is it? We need to mute these 2 because those were my first versions of the drums, but those are the stock drums, and I've gotten sick of those stock drums because I used them enough. Okay, let's go here though. Let's get into some filter changes for that main sample, and then we will do some send effects as well. Another nice feature that it has, but I'll get into that huge catch that these send effects have. We'll do a low pass filter to start. Actually, let's do a high pass filter because I want to see if we can get that little bass trick. Okay, so what I'm going to do is there's a way you can use a high pass filter. If you up the resonance like crazy, it will give an emphasis to the low end rather than remove the low end. So like if I play this and up it, hear how tinny that sample becomes? But we want to find a part where there's kind of like a bass peak. And then we up the resonance. You can hear it's getting a little more hollow. Hear that? Okay, that's a lot. We don't want that much resonance, but I just wanted to show that it does that. Let's mess around with that. Okay, there's not quite a lot of bass, but it did make it a little thicker. Let's just check out using a low pass filter and see what happens. And Fate, you say, does it instant mute though? Thanks. It instant mutes if you have gate on, but I don't have gate on, but it should. Let's just test it out really quick. We can do that pretty easy. So we're playing this sample, right? If I just mute it, it plays in full that slice because we sliced it and then it cuts off. But if we set it to gate, the whole sample is going to sound really weird because I didn't play it like that. But if we mute it, it should stop immediately or as soon as it's like triggered off. Yeah, so, oh, that's why we had poly. Sorry, I was hitting the wrong button actually. Let's, okay, so now it's on gate. I just changed it to poly. Hear how it cuts it off instantly? So you would have to have the gate on to do that sort of thing. Hopefully that answers your question, Fate. Let me know if not. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't really messed with MIDI yet. So speaking of MIDI, I don't have that problem. But if you're just looking to mute the audio, this is the way you do mutes. And then if you have gate on, it will instantly choke it basically as soon as you mute it. But yeah, let me know, Fate. Hopefully that answered your question. Okay, now it's actually doing some gating, so I don't know why. Were we on? Let's try poly. I actually kind of like what we did though. I don't know how we did that, but I think we messed with the gates when we did that. We might just re-record it, but let me just... Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do, because this one I know we need the gate longer, so let's go here, up the gate, and this one will up the gate. I kind of like the that pause. Okay, we have to fix that one. Okay, I think we'll redo it, but let me just test one thing, because I kind of like that. Fate says, I think the gate is a solution. Okay, dope. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I don't know. I will say, I don't know what I just did to these because I didn't have it set to record, but doing that gate changes seemed to affect it. So we might just, I mean, I'm probably just going to redo it, but I kind of like those that chop. So I wonder if it's like a per step thing. Let's go here. Shut off gate. Oh, maybe I just had gate turned on. Yeah, okay. So I guess I just had gate turned on, and yeah, I guess that's the thing with going live. So it looks like what I just did wasn't an issue, just me blanking for a second. So let's go though into the effects. So to get those effects on, oh, we don't want that. We need to go shift mixer first. Oh yeah, and I want auto pan off. It should be in stereo, but with the main sample, I don't want that on. You can go into pan here on mixer. You can change the out bus, which we want to keep that. But now we're going to do the send and delay. So you have to turn these on in the mixer, and then you can mess with the delay and reverb setting. So I'm going to up a lot of reverb, and then let's actually do a pretty good amount of delay too. Okay, you can already hear it. But that's whatever stock delay settings we have. So let's go. Went shift, delay, reverb. I definitely want sync on. Time, we're gonna go to, let's try dotted eighth. This is where I was thinking with the gate, it could be pretty cool. Okay, I like that. Let's leave it at that 8. We might just drop the amount. Actually, let's just drop the level a little bit. No, we want to drop the send level actually. Feedback, we can leave at 140 something. Oh yeah, let's go. There is high and low pass to that. Let's clean that up a little bit. Dropping some of the high end will give it a little more warmth in that delay. So we'll do that. And then let's go over to that reverb. Just find the reverb we like. I typically like mod. Let's up the reverb. I want it to be pretty long. Level's fine. And let's do that low pass to clean up that reverb too. Little high pass too. Let's do maybe 6.3. There we go. And Cressa says the reverbs and delays in the compacts are excellent. I have T8 and S1. Yes, but there's a huge problem with these on here, and I'm going to show you right now. If we turn on the filter and let's just drop it ridiculously, you hear how the filter's not affecting the send and reverb. You know why? Because it's routed after the effects. So if you set drums onto this, you're gonna have a really bad time if you use filters. And I'll show you what it's gonna sound like. Let me find those drums. Here, these are the drums, right? Let's go and up the send reverb. So we're on 22, I wanna keep that. So if I forget, chat, hopefully you'll remember 22. Let's up it like crazy. So it's gonna sound horrible. Sounds ridiculous, right? But now let's do that filter. If we do the looper, you're still getting the reverb send and the delay send without any of the effects. So if you're planning to use performance effects, which is a huge thing for SP and the P6, that's like one of the big things about those. Now, obviously, I'm just mentioning the SP because of the performance effects. This isn't affected by that. But the way they've done the routing for those send effects is after these performance effects. So it's kind of a ridiculous route. And thanks, Cressa, they put 22. Okay, so we're going to change that now because that sounded terrible. So let's just go to 22. And I will say, I like to have a little reverb even on the kick. That is why we cut some of the low end. And just to clarify, when it comes to these send effects, just the send effects, whatever you send into the send effects is going into the same settings of the effect. So if you set a reverb at certain settings, everything you send into it is going to hit those settings. It's just the level per pad you can control. So keep that in mind if you are doing this sort of stuff. So I do like to have a little reverb just to add some room sound to the drums to kind of give it more of like a human feel. Okay, I really like with those effects. I'm tempted to resample that main part though, because we can talk about sample rates and some of that stuff. Sean asks in the chat, if I have a drum loop on a pad, how do I sync it to match the sequencer tempo? Thanks. There is no, what is it, auto detect BPM or whatever you want to call it. Like in Koala, you know, you can sync like a time stretch. That's the word I'm looking for. You can't do that on here. So the only way you could theoretically do it is if you go in and chop the sample and then perform it to try and match it. But you're going to run into a lot of problems because you can't change the per slice start points. So you might get weird. Like if you're in 91 BPM and the sample is at 121 and you cut it to, let's say 8, you're going to get other hits in each of those 8 slices. And then it's going to be kind of wonky. Sometimes it can work, especially for boom bap and stuff, to get that kind of off time feel. But that is something you need to consider. So yeah, Sean, sorry, hate to be the bearer of bad news, but one thing you could do though is take those samples if you've got a DAW or if you've got Koala and use a time stretch algorithm in there to sync it to the BPM. Then you can put it into the P6. That is a workaround. I know it's not in the P6, but if you need to, that's something you can do. Sean, you just added how to sync samples to match sequencer tempo to clarify. Yeah, if you're talking like the sample is a long form sample, like, you know, a drum loop and not one shots that you're just trying to auto set whatever you sequenced, yeah, you can't do that. You have to do that workaround I just mentioned. I don't know what the MV1 is. I'm not familiar with that. So if you want to mention that, go ahead. But yeah, anyways, let's keep going though. So from here, I just want to check still. I want to do what would happen if we do a low pass filter. I feel like that high pass with the resonance did do, or did we already set it? Oh, we're on the wrong sample. That is my bad. Not really something with the P6. I just forget. Okay, let's go here, type, let's do the low pass, and then let's go to cutoff. Oh man. I really like the sound of that, especially the rise. That would be great for the intro. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Roland MV1, so I can't attest to their comparison. Sorry about that. I can look into it and talk about it in a future live stream, but yeah, I don't know it, so. Okay, I think we're gonna stick with, as much as I like that, let's go with the high pass for now. We do have a ton of resonance, so it would sound different if we did add it or change the resonance, but let's stick with the high pass because I liked where that was. I think it was about 112. Okay, I like that. Cresthead's got you covered, it looks like, so hopefully that helps regarding the MV1. All right. Okay, I think we're gonna keep it with that high pass. Let's really quickly, we have an empty pad, and this is one thing I actually wanted to talk to you about, kind of one of the bigger cons with the P6, and I understand it is a limitation of its form factor, but if you're trying to do multiple tracks at a time on the P6, when it comes to resampling, which is a huge thing for P6, SP404 workflow, you run out of pads pretty quickly. Like every pad on here but 5 on this bank is taken right now, and that's because I haven't been able to do like exports of other jams that I've been working with. So for me, like the resampling with these sample rates and with added effects and stuff, it becomes a problem over time. I am going to show how to do the resampling, and this will cover also how to sample any sound in. And it does have a microphone, which is a huge win. They got rid of it on the SP. Another reason why I kind of feel like they do work really well together. The Mark II lost that microphone. So what I'm going to need to do is find all of these other drum sounds, and we're going to mute them. Let's see, where are the other... Okay, so that's that, and if we go into A, we'll mute that. And then we need to mute those two. And then find where that random little rim is. There it is. Okay, so we gotta go back and do all that. But to resample this, I want everything else muted. Now, I don't know if we'll use this, but I want to just see what happens here. So if we go back to that empty pad, we've got, all we have to do is hit sampling, and you can hear the microphone. If you want to mute the mic, hit delete. As you can see, it says mic mute. Now we can change sample rates, which really is to allow for longer sample times. The hi-fi sample rate, which is I think 48 or 44, has like 2 seconds in stereo or something and 4 in mono. I have all of the sample rates and just a really good like reference guide if you want to just kind of navigate the P6 and all of its menus in my cheat sheet. The link is in the description, and it shows all the different sample times and all that stuff. But I'm going to do the lowest one because this is a pretty long sample. It should capture all of it. Then before we start recording, I'm going to change with the start the measures to 4. So I capture 4 measures because that's what we've done. And then we could change the noise thresholds and stuff, but I think we're going to be fine. So let's go in and arm that. We're in standby. All we have to do is hit play and it starts recording it. And you can see the volume here. Oh, we could have added effects too. I should have mentioned we could have added like vinyl or cassette. I don't think we need it because this is sampled from a vinyl. Now, one thing, it always starts with the volume pretty low. It's not at the max. So here's the sample we made. And to play the original, so I actually think I like the original. This really lo-fi's it up. Yeah, I think we'll stick with the original, but I did just want to show that. And then if you were to then put this into the pattern instead of the original, you would just go into the steps on the original, delete them all, and this one would just need to be on the first one, and it would play the full bar. Real quick in the chat, Bruno asked, can I use an external MIDI controller to work around this limit of 6 pads on the P6? You know, I haven't done it. You can use external MIDI. I've heard there's some weird things with the channels and stuff like that. But sorry if I'm moving from the mic. Yeah, to set up the MIDI and to test it. That is something I need to do in the future, Bruno, and I'll do it in a future live stream. But you do need, where's this MIDI TRS? So I have, like, for the Digitac to SP, it's the usual MIDI, and then this, what is it, 8 inch or whatever. Yeah. Okay, so let's go from there, and we'll see what's going on. I'm going to check in on that poll really quickly. Looks like 53% of 30 votes said yes. So I'd love to hear everybody voting yes or no, what your thoughts are on the P6. We're getting some really good questions or answers in the chat. But yeah, just let us know. Okay, so I wanted to show that resample, but we're not going to use it. To delete a sample, if you wanted to, just hit delete, and then you got to hit delete again once you choose the pad. Okay, now we got to go through the process of finding all those drums again. So 5 and 6 are our hats. And one thing we need to do actually is get rid of these, because if we want to do a full bank mute like when we're performing, that's going to be quite the problem. Okay, that should be good. So now if we mute that bank, okay, they still come back. So it didn't take the, there we go. Let's get rid of that. We'll just do each one. We have to go through each page real quick. Okay, so that should be all of them for the kick. Let's go to that snare, shut that off. We could even use this snare for some ghost notes or something, but we'll see. Okay, I think that's everything. So there's still one kick. We gotta find that. There it is. Okay, and then our kick. And there's still one snare. I'm missing some. Okay. This is one thing with when it comes to the P6. Like sometimes you just find this workflow is a bit cluttered and just complicated to do, like to get around moving pages and things like that. I like on the SP how you can just use that one wheel and just move around it. Yeah, best add-on for the P6 when you get one, a notepad and pen. Yeah, definitely. That comes in pretty useful. The other thing is, like, I would definitely say another sampler, like for me, because this thing, I've done full songs. Like if you watch the intro video or some jams and stuff, it is possible. I typically stick with doing pattern mutes or track mutes while playing instead of switching between patterns. But if you really want to add a lot of variation and stuff, I move it to the SP and then make changes and stuff like that. Anyways, let's get back to, we gotta find those drums. Here they are on 5. And then I think we have some other, there's somewhere else, yeah, this guy doing that little rim. And then I just want to make sure if there's anything, yeah, these. There we go. Okay, perfect. All right, so now I want to find, I have this bass sample from I think the first P6 live stream we did. And I'm wondering we can at least get a bass one shot out of it, but we might actually be able to get, it almost sounds like it's in key. And almost on time. I think that might work. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce the name, but and I apologize, but someone asks how much memory is in it. I don't know offhand, and then they also asked the sample time. There's different sample rates that give you different sample times, and then each one has a mono and stereo time. Sorry, I don't have it offhand. It is in my cheat sheet, and then you can find it online pretty easily if you search for it. But yeah, those more technical questions, it's probably best to search that real quick as we make a beat. But you can get pretty, not good times, but you can get like 4, 5, 6 bars if you're in those lower sample rates. But yeah, you can't get anything in those higher sample rates. And that is one of its kind of cons. I like working in lower sample rates. It has a lot of color and stuff like that. But if you want that kind of hi-fi sound, it might not be the sampler for you unless you're doing a lot of one-shots. And then they also asked, can I put a MIDI keyboard in? Yeah, we just talked about that. If you watch back a little bit, I showed the little cables that you need and all that type of stuff. And if I missed any chat, just post it again. I apologize. Oh yeah, Cresshead says, with the MIDI, external-wise, you can access 3 channels, drums, melodic, and granular. Yeah, I do need to do that. That is something I will cover in the future in a live stream. But yeah, the MIDI is interesting, so we'll get into that at some point. Soon I'm going to do a MIDI sync controlling the P6 with the Digitac, because that opens up a ton of flexibility, because that sequencer is just perfect. So yeah. Okay, let's keep going though. I want to check out this bass. So I'm thinking, let's try chopping it real quick. Let's say 8 chops. Oh, not granular, sorry. We'll get there though. I'm gonna turn on gate. Just seeing the notes we want. Psych Rock is in the chat. What's going on? How is the P6 treating you? I know you got one recently. Okay, so there's like little other notes coming in that bass, but I think we can kind of make it. I think we can make that bass work. Let's make sure Quantize is on. I'm going to play through it a couple more times and then we'll record it. I know sometimes well, let's just see how it goes. I was going to say, because sometimes it can just get a little weird with the tails in those chops. But let's see if we can make it work. And then I wonder if we could try... See, I think the start and end is only going to affect the overall sample. So if we like slice it, it's just going to mess with the chops. So let's just see what we can get. I really like starting with this E note. Oh, that works. Okay, that actually works pretty well. Let's turn on, I'm gonna make sure that record is off, but let's see what happens if we turn on lo-fi. So it looks like, I actually wasn't sure of this, it looks like the lo-fi setting is individual for each pad, which is awesome. So we can kind of change it. I want a little bit so it comes in. Hopefully you're all hearing the bass. It's a acoustic bass, so it should have some high range frequencies. But to fix that, or just to mess with it, let's actually go in and let's put a low cut on it, and we'll up the resonance, because that should add a little sound in the high range. I'm just thinking if anybody's like watching on a phone or something, I want to make sure that you can hear it. There's some. I'll change it. I'm just trying to hear. There it is. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is I'm using the lo-fi to add some grit and high harmonics to this bass sound, and then I'm using a low-pass filter with the resonance peaked pretty high to bring out that characteristic. So it might sound annoying for like long-term use. We might change it, but hopefully you can at least hear some of the bass if you're like on a phone or something. Some people do listen to not just YouTube videos, but music. Oh, Psych Rock says they're hearing the bass now from my phone. So awesome. Okay, so that's something I wanted to mention. Like, even if you're making a track, you know, for streaming or something, a lot of people, like, I listen when I walk, not with headphones, like just with my phone, you know, very quietly or something, or like if I'm working out in the garage where my gym is or something. So you want to make sure the bass is heard on anything. So doing a little resonance trick like this can definitely bring it up. Let me just go to the chat. What do we have? Cresshead says, one of the big deals with the P6 over the SP404 is the pitch play range on the P6 is like 6 octaves. SP is just 2 octaves. I know. I wonder if that's something they could patch. But again, I don't think they're going to do a lot of these things in the SP now because it cannibalizes this. But you're right. And then Cresshead continues, I think he's 100% spot on. The P6 and 404 really do complement each other. Yeah, I mean, I have the most fun using both of them because you get more bus effects and all that. I just really wish we'd get some sort of integration because it just seems like a huge miss to not have that. We can do that with Koala where we can move sounds almost instantly. We can kind of like get the best of both, sequence Koala with the SP, you know, as like hardware. Seeing something like that with like quick in out, you know, just by USB-C or something would be huge. Let me go. What else we got? Ancient Arcane. That's an awesome name. Says the new TEOPYZ looks interesting. Yeah, I saw it. I haven't checked it out. I saw the price range or the price tag. Yeah, I've never really messed with those. I've got the PO33 and I really like the EP133. I saw it at NAMM last year. But yeah, I haven't checked out the OPs, but I've heard good things about them. Psychrock says, hey, Sunwarper dude, it's going good. Was traveling this week and got to spend some time with it and made a few dope loops. Awesome. So what are you thinking, Psychrock? Are you going to keep them on the P6 or move them to another piece of hardware and flesh them out on there? I'd love to hear. Psychrock says, absolutely, the Mark II goes with almost everything, but it's definitely great with the P6. The Mark II is just a jack of all trades. Like I think it's my favorite sampler. Where else? Crescent says, also for on-the-move jamming, the mix-in jack will pass the audio out on USB audio for recording straight to your phone when you're out. Yeah, there's some really cool I/O on the P6. There are some really cool things. Like I said, the P6 does a ton of things awesomely, and when we get to the final thoughts soon, I'll talk about that. But yeah, there's just some issues and stuff. And I think as we've been making this beat, we've covered a good bit of them, but I'll just go through some stuff as we go. Now that we've got the bass though, again, there are some notes that are a little off. That's just a function of the chops that we made. But I think if we just drop, whoa. Well, now the bass is super. Here we go. Hold on. I'm gonna just drop the bass a little bit, and that should help just kind of mask some of the wonkiness there. And what I'm also going to do is add a little bit of reverb to this and maybe even a little delay to that bass. Because that might, we'll see. This could go horribly wrong, but it might actually help with some of that kind of wonkiness in those like chops. Yeah, I like that. Okay, we'll stick with that. And I'm just going to drop the level a little bit more. Okay, one other thing that I want to do really quickly is just alter some of these the kicks a little bit. We'll do like every other. I want to add another snare hit too. It's D4. So if we want to just program and change the note value, you can just, again, with that granular, once you're holding the note, go there. Let's go to D4 and let's drop the velocity. This is the 4th bar. So I kind of want like, you know, something to bring us back into the next one, back into bar 1. Yeah, that works. And I actually think we'll do full velocity on that, or 100. At least a little bit more. And then let's actually go and do a little micro timing. So this is kind of, as we get into the steps and stuff, this is kind of what's going to add the groove. I think so. Quantize must have been off when I did this, but doing this takes a long time, doing the micro timing, but it adds the most groove and changing those velocities and stuff. Okay, last thing I want to do, I think this beat's really come together. I want to see if we can get something in the Granular Engine. And for that, I'm going to need to open my cheat sheet so I can remember all of because there's tons of different settings you can change all on this tiny menu. And that, I think, again, is its biggest, probably the ugly when it comes to the good, the bad, and the ugly with the P6 is because of its form factor. the menu diving is just insane. And I don't think that's something, I know Crescent says it's highly unlikely there will be an update, but I don't think that's something that can be updated. It's just a result of the way this works. But so, okay, we've got a bunch of granular sounds. Or granular settings. Let's find, I like that sound actually. I know it's just one note, but let's see what else we have. I think this is a longer. Let's go. That should be just an octave. So yeah, Chris, it says the screen. Yep, yeah, that is its biggest thing. And one thing I'd love to see, like we have an app with the P6, right? But all it is for moving samples. So why not do something like Overbridge, where you can actually change settings and stuff on the Digitact with the app? That would solve a lot of my problems if you're just doing USB, right? Because we have USB. Crescent says, regarding the screen, still a better screen than the Yamaha, what is that, Seek Track? Yeah. All right, what else? While I do this, I want to read a couple chats before we move on. Psychrock says, the only problem I'm having with the P6 sampling over USB, I set threshold to -3, and sometimes it will just not pick up the sample, even though it reads the signal on the keyboard, especially with trying to sample hi-hats in over USB. That I don't know. I'm not sure. We can try and diagnose that later or something, but you may want to email Roland and see. I don't know. Crescent says for 170, I think that's pounds, UK is effing nuts. Just putting that out there. It's a mini Swiss Army knife. SP404 is a big Swiss Army knife. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That is a good way to put it. I think this is like awesome, as we've been talking about. You start on here, get the idea, and then you can move it over to something or put it in the DAW. A couple more chats, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to do this granular. So to choose the sound for the granular, because when you first start a pattern, actually, we need to save. Somebody asked me how to save patterns. All you have to do in a chat or in a comment a couple days ago, shift right, which is the last one, hit all, and now you're good. Because if you shut this before you save it, you lose it. I was messing with this yesterday, getting set up for today's stream, and I started making that drum, shut it, forgot, turned it back out. I was like, oh, man. It's like, come on. Ancient Arcade says, are these all your samples? I'm stuck in between wiping all the samples or keeping them. So all of them are my samples except the closed hi-hat. That's the stock one. I actually, yeah, I'm moving samples and in between samples. Most of these samples are up, are from my sample packs over on my Sounds by Sunwarper page, but all of them go up to Solar Sailor tier channel members. So if you do want to get some of these samples, they'll be up after the stream once I can export them. What else do we have? Safa1 says, unless they make a P6 Mark II. Yeah, I mean, it took how many years for them to make the SP404 Mark II? It was a long time, so we'll see. We'll see, but that would be nice if they make some of these fixes. I'd love to just see some of these things get updated. But anyways, let's talk granular. So when you first open a pattern, it's whatever bank A1 is. That's why it's the stock kick, and it's doing the granular stuff. So what we want to do is find this, which is on bank F. We're going to go, I think is it shift granular? Or is it, no, it's a pattern granular, and then we choose that. So pattern granular, choose the pad that you want. And then if you hit granular, you now have the granular. Now to get into all of the granular settings, shift voice. And now, unlike the normal samples, you're going to get a ton of new random letters on your menu. And they're not actually random, but they just look like, you know, someone threw letters to the wall. But so we have head position, sets the start time of the grain playback. I want it to start at the start, so we're not going to mess with that at all. That is head speed. I'm looking at my SP404 cheat sheet. The link's in the description if you need it. But let's go head speed. So controls the grain playback speeds. Negative values go in reverse. This can be kind of fun. So if we just mess with this a little bit, you can see this is the granular sequence, like what it's playing. And you can see how it changes. If we put it to negative, it's going in reverse. And you can see it move around the sample. So basically imagine this is your waveform and it's just like moving across it. So we'll do that. And then spread is just going to add randomization to the grain generation point. So if we up that, you can see it's going all over the place. I like a little bit if we're trying to make like a pad or a lead or something. I don't know what the sound is going to be. I'm just kind of messing with it as we go. GRNS is grain density. And so let's just kind of mess with that. I'll read through what that is. So that is controls the density of the grains. Let's go lower. Actually like that. Let's go higher though. All right, grain shape. This one's cool. It's kind of like an LFO on the shape. So where's that? I gotta look. If you do, it can be a square wave, I think from 0 to 49, and then 50, I think is a triangle. No, I'm sorry. It's a saw wave going from 0 to 49, triangle at 50, and then square, I think, or something. It's something like that. I'll have to look back in my cheat sheet for that. But I do want to get, it's basically adding crossfades, like a fade at the start or fade at the end, or if you do 50, it fades both at the start and end of each grain. That's getting pretty trippy. Okay, let's go grain size. If you hold shift, you can get a little more nuanced control on there. We don't want to mute that. There we go. Hold up. Yeah. Let's do... That could be something. Let's just see. Grain reverse probability. So this is the probability of the grains, any grain playing backwards. So you can just get some really trippy sounds from there. What is this one? Grain time jitter, random timing to grain playback. I haven't really messed with this one. And then lastly is the grain time key follow, determines if grains are affected by pitch. And I think you actually want to go to 0 if you're going to do like chromatic stuff. Okay, so let's see what we've got. We can also add attack, which I think we're going to do. Okay, I just want to mess with that sound a little bit more. It's like too much grain stuff. So let's drop. Let's stop that, what was it? The spread. That should work. And then let's add some more attack. And then we'll add that delay and reverb. And that should give us something pretty trippy. Let's go into decay. Sustain, we can leave at that. And we'll leave not as much release. All right, that works. Okay, I'm going to get to the chats in a second. Sorry, it's just running through this, the granular. There's so much you can do with it, and it's just crazy what you can do. So let's go into the sends. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I think it typically defaults to auto pan for granular. Now auto pan can be cool. It moves it across the stereo field, but since I want to go for like a lead, I don't really want that. So I'm going to shut it, and I'm pretty sure, unless it's just my P6, granular defaults to random. So I typically shut that off. And then let's go some delay. There we go. And a lot of reverb. Yeah, Ancient Arcane says, I wish Roland made a decent owner's manual for this thing. I'm with you. I'm with you. That's why I made the cheat sheet, because it was crazy. And a lot of commenters wanted to check it out, so I put it up. And channel members at the Sunsinger do get it as part of the membership, so you can check that out if you want that. All right, Bruno says, Roland is awesome to put this to sell for a good price here in South America. Unfortunately, most of the boutique companies like Electron don't sell here, and importing is a pain. That's a bummer, but I'm glad this is available. I mean, this is kind of, to me, like a Digitac Lite or Digitac Lite, like with these per step things you can do and stuff like that. Just wish the menu was better, or the screen was better. Psychrock says, I encourage everyone to grab Sunwarper's cheat sheet. That thing comes in super handy when you need to figure out a P6 mystery on the fly. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Savo1 says, oh, I skipped Levi. Sorry, Levi. I think we'll get a Rompler for is that Ira? Yeah, Ira. This is the series of these. Yeah, next, actually. Yeah, we'll see. I was shocked this came out. I mean, it's just crazy what you can do in this like tiny workflow, because coming from something like the PO33, even the EP133 or the Volca sample, they all have such limitations that I don't think this really does. Like, you get a pretty fully fledged sampler, what, 48 pads, lots of banks, all these effects, individual sends, all that stuff. Of course, there are some problems. Yeah, Crescent says Digitech Light but poly. Yeah, this has polyphonic, and I love that every sample can be polyphonic. Like the drums, we could have a hi-hat playing on the same, like chop these drums. Where is it? You could just go into the steps that we made. Let's get out of this send. And you could do, let's find, you can do poly on the one sample pad. Like, just crazy. So if you need extra space, that is something you can do with you put things on that. A couple other chats, and then let's finish this track up. Did I read? I don't think I read Safa's yet. Safa 1. I think it's a dope machine. It's a good workflow. Granular is dope. I like your content. I learned a lot from you. Appreciate it. It means a lot. I'm happy to hear that. And I agree with you. I have a lot of kind of like cons with the quirks. Like the knobs are so small. Sometimes when I'm adjusting one, it messes with something else. And everything's so tiny. Like you hit some other keys, or like when we were trying to delete the tracks, you know, moving between the pages, sometimes I'd accidentally re-engage a sequence or a step in that. So there are these little like cons and stuff, but overall I think it's awesome. I'm curious if anybody in the chat is new to samplers and got this as their first sampler, because to me this thing seems pretty complicated for a first sampler. Like I would almost recommend something like the SP or the MPC, maybe even like for a first sampler, but I could be wrong. It's just like there's so much here. I think it'd be a great first sampler once you learn it, but to learn it, it just seems to me like it would be a lot to take in. Like there's just so much on this tiny little machine. Yeah, all right. And that is another thing. I think that's what Chris said saying, but if you have multiple tracks that you're making, like you can have a ton of patterns, right? There's 4 banks of patterns, and all those are patterns. But whatever volumes you set per sample pad, that's across all of them. So if you make a track and have, let's say, the drums at 127 volume, then in the next track you need it a little lower, it adjusts it. So like if you're trying to play a beat set on it, it's not going to happen. Like Chris said the global aspect, no projects means you'd be wise to make note equal notepad, or notes equals notepad. Sorry if I'm misreading that, but yeah. So there are little things and stuff. And I just want to finish this track, then we'll go into kind of my overall thoughts. And if anybody has their thoughts on it, I know multiple of you have been sharing it, but please feel free to put it in the chat or in the comments if you're watching this back. All right, let's get out of this though, and let's see if we can make something work with this granular sound. And we can add the lo-fi, and we can drop that volume. And actually, let's put on a filter too. I think we get filters on this. Yeah, we do. Let's do a low pass filter. Could even do band pass. That could be interesting. One thing I wish, like the super filter on the SP has an LFO. I'd love to have an LFO on the per pad filters. That would just make it so much more kind of like, I don't know if analog's the right word in its sense, but you know, like varying in the sound and things like that. Okay. I think we can actually get something with that. Let's turn on the keyboard. Let's just throw something in and see what happens. Alistair says, sup P6 fam, don't forget 2 P6s is twice the P6 power and half the limitations. I don't know, man, but maybe, yeah. Crescent says, my mate Sam bought 2 P6s. He's loving it. So, yeah, maybe you're right, Alistair. What would that be? Because I think these are, what, $220? So, for like $440 with tax and stuff? Not bad. I think the SP is $550, maybe $500. So, yeah, you got a point there. I'll read the other chats in a second. Levi says, got to run. No worries. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great Saturday, Levi. Let's finish this up, though. Yeah, that's perfect. Now, what I really wish we had was sidechain, because I would love to hear all of those sounds kind of bouncing under that kick. That would really be awesome, but we don't, just like the SP. I do hope that's something we sometimes see on the SP, like on the 5.0 update or whatever. All right, couple chats that I know I missed. Bruno says, Yamaha did a good job putting AWM2 sounds into the Seek track. A Roland compact Rompler with a sequencer would be awesome. A Busy Bee says, I was going to pick up one of these, but decided to get the 404 Mark II instead. Kind of hope they update the 404 firmware with the granular feature. I think you made the right choice. If you're going between one of the two, I mean, the SP, in my opinion, offers far more. But there are some stuff that's on here that it's like, why is that not on the 404? Granular is one of them. I've been getting a lot of comments in this chat even about Granular on the SP. So that would be something nice. I mean, look at that sound we just made from a little, it was the Volca FM that I just did like an octave A on or something. Excuse me. And then now we've got this trippy little lead sound. And I mean, we didn't even scratch the surface of what you can do with the Granular. I have a full video on that. And PsychRock asks, Sun Warper, do you have a Patreon? I'm going to make one, but I do have the memberships on YouTube. So yeah, if you do want to support, you can check out all the stuff. But the samples are for this. All the samples we make on these live streams go to the Solar Sailor tier. So if you want those samples and stuff and drums and all that stuff, you can check that out, PsychRock. But I'm pretty stoked with this. I don't want the, cassette. Okay, so last thing I want to talk about with in terms of workflow and stuff like that. Some of the effects, just like on the SP, have a second page of effects. Really, that's page as in these controls, these 3 controls. You get like 3 and then another 3 if you hold shift. And so the best way to show that for me, because I kind of know what we're doing on cassette, is on the cassette setting, if you hold shift, that's going to change the drive. And then I think the catch and one other one. It's all the same settings as the SP for these. But I want to turn on, if you listen without the drive, upping it, and here it does some craziness. I want the song to be pretty warped. Okay, and without shift, control 3 is age. I want a little bit. This is a filter, which we can actually use for some performance aspect instead of bouncing between a filter and cassette. This is noise, so I think wow and flutter. Okay, wow and flutter is control 2 if you hold shift. And then that means catch. Yeah, catch is the third one, which I do not want that. But I do want some wow and flutter. That's gonna grit it up nice. And a lot of drive. I want this thing to get pretty gritty. Okay, so if I'm doing, I gotta remember. Okay, so this actually makes it a little bit easy. A and D are my main drums, but I think there's something on, yeah, there is one thing on E. It's not that consequential though. Okay, so let's shut those 2 off. And then if I'm just thinking, so basically the track's done. Now I'm just thinking how we're gonna jam it, because we could do pattern sequencing, which real quick, I am gonna save this pattern. so I don't lose it again. You can copy patterns. The copying patterns is really annoying, actually. So like if you want to go to, I think pattern G has nothing, right? So 4/8 is pattern G. The main one we're using is 4/07. So what you have to do to copy a pattern, and there may be another way to do that, but this is the way that I found. Hit Shift, copy, go back. You know, we were doing the duplicate earlier this way. Go to pattern, and then you have to move over, like shift over to 4/08. Then hit that, and now you've got that one on 4/08 and on 4/07. So you could bounce between patterns, like it is going to trigger to the next one, and we can do additional variations and stuff. I just don't really like that workflow, and it doesn't seem like I want to check something actually. Are the mutes global? I think the mutes are global. If we move here and then move to the next one, I think it's global. Let's see. Oh, okay, so they aren't global. So that's actually perfect. So for the jam that we're about to do, we can actually use that to our advantage. And okay, so I guess I will use a little bit of the patterns. But it just, to me, it's a bit cumbersome compared to like the SP, where you can just copy with a couple button prompts and then you can make a bunch of variations. It's functional. I guess it's just a me thing. Like I'd personally want to probably do a little bit more. Okay, so if we go back into this pattern though, I want to mute the drum and these two, the granular, and then that bass. Oh, wrong one. Bass. Okay, so we can use that cassette tone as kind of a filter for that rise, like we were talking about way earlier. And yeah, Chris said there some great effects, no SP404 input effects like vocoder, guitar sim, which I think is a huge miss on this. No auto tune, but yeah, you're right. 177, I think that's pounds, 220 or something US. And P6 has no pattern chaining. You have to manually set it up. Yeah, that is one of the big cons. But huge win though, like you're saying, that having those mutes stored, that does help, just because I didn't structure the samples in the way that I normally would, which I talk about in my 6 ways to make the most of the P6 video. I can't do my easy mutes where all the drums are on the first banks and then all my melodies are on the E through H. So this will work to do this. And like I was saying, we're gonna use the tone to do a little sweep at the start, and then we'll move into the pattern. So what we're gonna do is basically jam this out, and then I'm gonna give my final thoughts on the P6 and kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly on it. And then if you have any questions about the P6, we have been going for a little while. I will have to get off soon, but I'm happy to answer them. So throw them in the chat, and after the video ends, the live stream ends, you can post them in the comments. But so we'll do this jam, and then we'll run through like the final thoughts, because I think there's a lot to talk about with the P6, as we've been doing for like an hour. So what I'm gonna do though is start the pattern and then trigger G, the 408, so that it moves over as soon as this is done. And all the mutes should be saved and all that stuff. So let's get this started. Want to mute the drums, or the bass and the granular on this actually. So let's go for 408. This one, we'll mute those two, and we'll keep it on those so we can just quickly unmute those. Let's do that over again then. So turn this one up. I'm gonna mute my mic. We'll get to those questions after. So throw in as many as you want, and we'll try to get through all of them. All right, so without my usual structure for the mutes, it's a little hard to do the changes in dynamics, but I think this jam is awesome. I think what I would do to finish it is move the one shots, like basically send the loops as individual samples into probably the SP and finish it there, or even into the DAW, sync the BPMs. I think we're at 91, and then just like copy and paste it. I'm going to be talking about that in the December live streams. I'm going to be building an EP with some of my favorites and just the favorites from the year that we've made in live streams, and we'll go through finishing them either in DAW-less setups or moving those DAW-less tracks into the DAW and adding MIDI and things like that. So that's what I'll be doing in the new year. But I think that's the jam. I actually really like it, so that might be one we add. We'll see. Now I'm going to go through all of the chats and the questions. So Wes asks, is there anything like Granular on the SP404? And I saw it down further. Driver of 86 says, no, nothing like Granular on the SP404 Mark II, which, believe me, we've all complained about. Yeah, I think we've all in the chat, and myself included, something we'd love to see. Cresset says, an upgrade worth doing on P6 is Thonk UK trimmer toppers for the knobs. Got them on my T8 and S1, so much better. Color-coded and bigger knobs. Okay, that would be huge. That would be huge. Psychrock agrees, says the trimmer toppers are awesome. Good recommendation too. I use an iPad app for Granular that I sample into the 404, but would love that upgrade on the Mark II. I mean, we got a sound generator. It would be nice. One thing I want to mess with is seeing if there's something I could kind of do to like replicate it using delays and sampling and stuff like that. I don't think so, but I mean, you might be able to get, because like some of the Granular settings is basically just kind of adding delay. And I know there's much more to it than that, but I'm wondering if we could get close to at least an approximation of some Granular using sampling. So that might be something we explore. Psychrock says, sick jam. Appreciate it. And Relax Music says, how it compared to the Korg Sampler 2. Is it good as a first hardware sampler or Groovebox? Thanks for the video. Is that the Volca sample? I don't know the Sampler 2. Me personally, I was saying earlier, that from my standpoint, this is a pretty complicated machine, especially given how much is in there. I think if you can learn it pretty quickly and stuff, it's a great first sampler in all that it can do and how much like you can fit into it in terms of storage, like with 48 samples and stuff like that, compared to some of these other smaller like EP or PO33 and the Volca sample and stuff like that. They have a lot lower sample times and things like that, to my knowledge. But like you look at this and it's a little daunting, and then like the Granular is awesome, but it's a lot to learn. So I think if you're willing to take your time with it and learn it, it is an awesome first sampler. But to me, something like the MPC or the 404 is like a really good start point. And the 404 is pretty complicated too, and I'm sure the MPC is too, but they're bigger, they have more functions, a lot more you can do with it. So to me, I think that's like the better beginner one. For me, I think the P6 is actually a better complement sampler. Like if you want these features in hardware for a really cheap price, like sample rate changes, the Granular Engine, per pad effects, like the sends and delays, the pitch, the like you can't get a lot of the things you can do per sample on the SP404. So together they work pretty well together. But yeah, it's hard for me to say. But while we do that, let me just kind of get into my final thoughts on all of these. So I've talked about a lot of them, but I'll just go through them quickly as we run through, if there's any more questions and stuff. But I think the fact that this can do so much in such a small form factor is awesome. Like I think it was Psychrock was saying they're taking it out and making loops, and then you can come back. That's what I've been doing. I build the loops on here because I love building the loops with the step sequencer, but the pattern stuff, like no pattern chain, that stuff, not my favorite. And then to do performance effects like we were trying to do in this jam, not the best for it. But you move that stuff over to the 404 and you've got it, Sample rates and the lo-fi button, I love this for sound design stuff. Like it's really for duration, getting more durations, but the crunch that those lower sample rates do, especially if you add some crusher or effects and then up the pitch and bring it back down, you can get some really cool stuff. The Granular Engine, as we talked about, huge win on this. All of the per step sequencing and editing is awesome. But the things that I really don't like about it, the short sample times for those high quality, you can kind of get around it if you pitch up a sample before you send it in and then drop it back to the 0, standard setting for it. The step editing workflow can get a little complicated. You have to hold each one. It's kind of boring and dull. Patterns are really lacking for me, like bouncing between it, no pattern chain, all that type of stuff. Not a lot of space for resampling. Like as I mentioned at the start, I think resampling is a huge thing when it comes to the SP workflow and now the P6. And I feel like you kind of, if you're doing multiple tracks on the P6 at once, you don't get a lot of space. Again, that's part of the form factor. You have to kind of accept it. And then the things that I absolutely find like bad or ugly, let's say, the menu diving on the screen, as you saw with the Granular Engine stuff when we were doing that, that's huge. Again, it's a function of putting all of this in such a small form factor and for such a cheap price. So I'm not hating on it. I just, for anybody interested in getting the P6, I want to lay out the good, the bad, and the really bad. What else? You can't edit slices and chop. Now, this is a huge problem for me, as we saw with the bass. I really would like to see that updated. And then the other really bad thing, in my opinion, the sends, the delay and reverb sends, which are a huge thing to be on here, are after the performance effects. So like as you heard when I put the filter on the track, if we go back to where the drums are and stuff, let me go, what pattern? We need this one. If we turn those drums back on, which actually, where did the drums even go? You can hear the snare and the kick and stuff. If we up the reverb, you'd hear it again, but I played it at the beginning. But anything in the sends and reverbs are after these effects. So even if you put a filter on all of your samples, if you've got really loud sends into the delay and reverb, those will just come out like normal. And so it's like almost not doing any sort of effect. And yeah, I know PsychRock, you were having that issue. I think I misread your comment. I didn't realize originally you were talking start and end point. You can obviously change the overall sample start and end point, but yeah, those slices are quite a problem if you're doing sample chopping. The fact you can chop so quickly on here is awesome, and that you don't have to choose that, but then it would be nice to have a little more control over it. But yeah, I think those are the two big things I have that are issues I have. The menu thing is a function of its size, but not being able to slice chops or edit the slices and chop, and then the reverb and delay being after the performance effects, it's a huge issue for me. And then I think that's pretty much it. The things I would like to see improved personally, and I'd love to hear from you all in the chat. I mean, larger screen would be nice, but that's a whole new machine, right? But things that I would like to see put in here, reverb and delay, at least have an option to put the effect before those sends before the performance effects. Like, let us change the routing, like how you can change the way you route bus 1 and 2 into bus 3 and 4 on the SP. And then I'd also like to see you have multiple buses on here, but only one does effects. And that might be an issue with like the power of this thing, but I would love to see 2 bus effects so you could get multiple effects and things like that. Yeah, and then the SP404 integration, that would be huge, what I'd like to see. All right, chat, we've got some more chats. Let me run through this. Alistair says, there are tools for making sounds and tool for using sounds. P6, definitely the latter. I don't know, I feel like with the granular and with the sample rates and the effects, I really actually, like, my idea for using this is sound design and then make tracks on something else. So I hear you though. MM says, thanks so much. And how about Sonicware Live in 12 Lo-Fi and Electron model cycles in comparison to Roland P6? So I don't have either of those. I'm familiar with them, but I'd have to look into them more for a comparison. I mean, I don't have them. I don't want to give some sort of unfair statement or assessment to it. Alistair says, quite like the KO2, etc., etc. Yeah, there's also the KO2. There's a lot now in this range that do some really cool stuff. I like that this has the step sequencer, but you can also program things in. I remember the EP1 through 3 having some, like, not having one of those, but maybe they've changed it or something. But I like the step sequencer, the way you can change the steps. You can edit velocities and things really quickly, like way quicker than on the SP404. Let's see. Half God, Half Beast says there's a sample editor to go with it for computer. There is, but you can't do a lot on it. We've covered it on the channel before. Really, all you can do is change the sample rates, change the start end, snap to 0. I would love to see more integration where, like an overbridge, you can actually see all of the settings and make adjustments rather than just like guessing what each thing is. Like if you could see it on an app and make changes, that would be huge. Psychrock says using your phone or something over USB-C. Oh, sorry, I misread that. If you get time some warp, try recording steps sampling over USB-C and see if it picks up your hats. I'll try to do that, Psychrock. Maybe for like a member live stream, I might do that or something at some point. Let's see what else we've got. Cresshead says, yeah, I have a KO2. It's really creative. That's awesome. Yeah. If Dot says, I think the P6 is just inherently flawed because of its size. It's neat, though. I kind of think that's where I land as well. I think it's awesome. I actually really like it. I've made a lot of music on it since it came out. And I just think for me, like, because of those flaws in it, it's my start point. Like, it's the easiest thing to pick up, sequence things really quickly, and then I do sound design with the sample rates and all of the awesome SP effects, or some of them at least. I like that for this portability. I can do it anywhere. I have a 1-year-old son. I'm in the house a lot. So like if he's napping, I can quickly make a track. And then when I have time, move into the studio and send it into like the DAW-less setup, you know, Digitact, SP and all that. So yeah, come out, but they put a horse inside a pony pretty much. Yeah. But because of that, that's what makes it so flawed. Like all you can do. Anything else? Let's see. Mike says, granular to SP, please. That's the only thing that's missing, but not enough for me to buy a P6, or they should find a way to really integrate it via USB. I definitely agree. For me, though, something missing on the SP, sidechain, per pad filters. I would love more step adjustments in the TR rec mode. Like a lot of the things I wanted to see on the SP, they put in this. And it's like, are they going to add those ever? Or is it now going to cannibalize the like market share and it won't happen? So, yeah. Let's see what else we got. Where are we? Cresshead, Half God, Half Beast, a phone editor app would be cool for the P6. Definitely. Ancient Arcane says Rolling Cloud Manager is clunky also. I find that too. It's hard to even find like the updates for the SP. I think you have to go to Roland Synth and Ira and like, yeah. Half God FB says, would be, but at the moment only PC or Mac. Yeah, I'd love to see more integration in that app. Just what you can do with it is nice, but I'd like to see a lot more. Where else? Bruno says, I think it might work better with external MIDI. That's what I'm planning to do when I pick up mine. I've gotten comments though having issues with the external MIDI, so I have to test it out. It's something I'll do in a live stream maybe in 2025. So we'll see where we go from that. Cresshead says P6 has ADSR filters, etc. The SP doesn't. Yeah, exactly. And no, Ancient Arcane. I wish the P6 had sidechain. I wish the SP did, because this song would benefit so greatly from sidechain. Oh, okay, you can hear the snare here. Hear that? That's the sends after the effects, which is just like crazy why it's routed that way. Yeah, and it's crazy. It has pitch envelopes too. There's like so much they've thrown into this thing. It's just like, it's crazy how much is in here. But anyways, I think we'll call it there. I just wanted to mention what's coming next on the channel. And like I said, all these samples will go up for Solar Sailor members, and then the jam will be up for all members. Next up on Monday, Digitact Overbridge video. I know it just came out for the 2, but I only have the 1. But I go over how to set it up, but also some workflow ideas to incorporate it into either like a total DAW setup, but bringing things into the DAW. Basically how I'm talking about finishing this song, but now with multiple outs, because every sample track on the Digitact becomes an individual out in your DAW, so you get a ton of mixing flexibility. And then I've got a member, all of the vinyl that I got from this track and then that we're going to do for the video next week, I sampled those and filmed the whole video for members, just basically a vinyl listening party. So if you want to hear all of those and where these samples came from, that'll be up soon. And then I've also got some new shirts coming. I haven't done a merch drop in a while, so we're going to do some shirts. Let me see if I can show it on, I always forget which screen. So that'll be up next week. But yeah, awesome hanging out with you all, and great to hear everybody's take on the P6. Like I said, throw it in the chat or comments once this is over, because it's just great to hear from everybody and where we all are at with this. If you dig the video, hit subscribe. If you haven't, like it. It helps a ton. Leave a comment. That really helps. And then, yeah, I think we'll call it there. A couple more chats I just want to go through. Half God, Half Beast. No, just put a thumbs up. Sorry. Cresshead says you can resample, though, to get around the effects. True, but it's just really annoying if you've got these awesome sends. Why would you put them after the performance effects? Because if you're doing jams on the P6, which these effects are really meant for, like the looper and stuff, when you hit the looper, the snare's still hitting on time. It's not gonna, you know, like with the whatever thing you have going through that. Psychrock says, great stream, man. Have a great day. And Sunwarper and everyone. Yeah, I hope you all have a great day, great weekend. And I'll see you on Monday for the next video. And then every Saturday, 11 a.m. Pacific, the live streams. With that, though, I appreciate you hanging out. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.